Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. Yes, this is Scrat from the Ice Age franchise of films, and of course, his nut. Now you might be thinking, what on earth am I doing with this? Well, it's very simple. A while ago, I was watching a video on YouTube of a guy, a Russian chap I believe he is, and he does these amazing dioramas using resin. And he had done a diorama, a recreation of one of the scenes from one of the Ice Age films, the subject of which was young Scrat here. And I showed it to my daughter, and she was very enamoured of it, and she asked me if I could make one for her. Now, I said to her, as I often do in these situations, I will, if I can find the STL, which I couldn't. I have a sneaking suspicion the guy made the STL himself. I did contact him, or tried to contact him, and I said, you know, can you tell me where to get this, or if you made it, can you sell me a copy of it? And he didn't respond, which is fair enough. He's, you know, he may not even speak English, I don't know. But I went around, and you'd think the internet would be just full, overloaded with Scrat, but no. This is the only decent one I could find. It's actually quite a good one. So we're going to use this, and we're going to do something a little bit different to what I had originally planned. So, let's get on with it. Right, now the interesting thing with Scrat is he's actually a number of different colours. His body is a kind of a brownish colour, and his tail is actually grey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the lighter underside of his body with XF55 deck tan. Then I'm going to do the top side of his body with XF78 wooden deck tan to give us that kind of slightly darker tone. And then for his tail, I'm going to do the body of his tail in XF82 ocean grey. And then his whole body has stripes, which I'm going to use RLM grey, XF22. So let's start with the deck tan and see how we get on. Right, there we go. That's the first coat. Right, next we'll go for our XF78 wooden deck tan. Right, well that doesn't look too bad, so I think we'll let this dry and then we'll start on his tail. Right, now that's dry, we'll get on with his tail, and we're going to start off with this XF82 Ocean Grey. Right, there we go, that'll do for that. Now we'll put the dark grey stripes on him. I think what I might do actually is I might use this grey to do the stripes on his body and then do the darker grey stripes on his tail. Right, and finally for the stripes on his tail we'll do the RLM grey XF22. Right, and that'll do for that, I think. Right, I've just decided I'm going to go over parts of him with this clear orange, because I think he doesn't quite look orangey enough. I'm just going to see if I can do something about his colours. Oh, that's much better. Yeah. It actually looks a lot more orange on the camera than it really is. But yeah, I like that. That's good. Right, onwards. Right, I'm going to start on his details now. I'm not going to go into too much detail of what I'm doing. Just I'll do it and kind of you can sort of follow along as I get on with it. Right, let's see if we can get his eyes done. This is Citadel. Most of these paints I'm going to be using a Citadel. This is Corax White, which is a base coat. I'm going to use this to get over his eyes to start with. Ugh. What I should have done really is after I sprayed him white I should have masked his eyes. It would have saved me having to do this, but never mind. I'll say these base coats usually provide good coverage, so hopefully I'll only need to do this once. So again, as usual, I apologise if I go out of frame. I am trying to keep it in front of the camera, but sometimes when you're doing it, it kind of gets away from you. You're so busy concentrating on what you're doing, you forget where you are in relation to the camera. Right. Don't look too bad, does it? Right, this one is, I believe, called Slanesh Pink, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'm going to use this to get inside his mouth as best I can. And also the insides of his ears. So I don't need to go too mad with this, because unless you're looking at him from right underneath like this, you can't even see inside his mouth. Oh, all I'm doing is constantly poking the camera with the with the brush. It's one of those things that there's always bits that you can see, but they're really difficult to get at. Right, there we go. Now let's do a little bit inside his ears. So he doesn't really have a great deal of colour inside his ears, but I just want to get a little bit in there just so that it doesn't look so monochromatic. So I don't know if you can see that, but there you go, just a little bit of pink inside his ears. Right, let's do his teeth. Right, this is Citadel Bleached Bone, which I always find is a very good colour for teeth. It's a very nice kind of ivory colour. Right, that'll do for that. Right, and what I want to do as well is get some of this Reichland Flesh Shade wash and go round just the base of his fangs, just to give it a little bit of yellowing. Right, there we go. Right, let's do his eyeballs. His eyes are actually quite a light brown, so I'm going to use this bestial brown for that, if I can get it open. And I'm going to use the same colour for his nose. Now this is where I've got to be careful, because I don't want to end up with him looking boss-eyed. Although I don't suppose it would really matter all that much. we go, that'll do. And we'll do his nose. Right, I think I'll do his claws the same colour. He actually has tiny little claws. They're more like toenails than claws. Right. Oh, this is going to be fun. I think most of them you can't actually see because he's got his hands folded up. Right, there we go. And I think all we need to do now is his pupils. Right, and for that we'll use Chaos Black. And we just want a little dot. Right, there we go, the beastie himself. I'm quite pleased with how that's come out. I think that looks pretty good. Right, I suppose I better paint his nut as well, don't I? Right, now that Scrat's done, we can start looking at the diorama. So for the base, I'm going to use another one of these. You've seen me use these before. These are the Master Tools, which is Trumpeter's brand. Display cases. I've got a few of these now. I tend to buy them whenever I see them cheap. I buy them because they're quite handy because they're a decent size, and also obviously with the way they're designed, they actually stack, so you can like put one on top of the other. So that's what I'll be using. I've done a little bit of preparation because this is the same kind of setup as I had for the language barrier diorama. So that's where a lot of this stuff has come from. So let me talk you through some of the stuff I've got here, because there's quite a lot. So the basic layout, as I mentioned, is more or less the same. So we've got the base and the two walls. But as you can see, there's obviously a lot of other stuff here. This is all stuff that I 3D printed on my resin printer. And it all came, or most of it came from a company called Loot Crate Games, and this was one of their Kickstarters. But it just goes to show you, really, I mean, this 3D printer is ridiculous. I mean, just look at how these little meshes have printed. I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, you know, that kind of detail on something so tiny. And these little computer. Now, obviously, I've kind of shrunk all of these, you know, to the right sort of size that I want. Yeah, that's fantastic. What I must do with one of these eventually is try and put lights and things in them. But anyway, so the only other thing I've got is this door, which is a bunker door. This, I can't remember, I think this came from, it was either My Manufacturer or Thingiverse, one of the two. But it's a whole bunker system for Warhammer 40k, and this is just the door. So I'm going to have that as the door to our bunker. Now, I've also got a couple of these Tesla coils, just because. And this little gadget here is what's going to have our nut on it. So basically, the way this is going to work is I'm going to use these grates for the floor. I've also got a whole bunch of these that I'm going to use for the walls, like that. So that'll be those. And then there's this piece here, which is these four kind of pie pieces. They go together like that and form a circle. So that'll be the middle, and it will have this sitting on top of it. and then I'm going to have the nut kind of floating above it. I think that's what I'm going to do. So what I've got to do now is clean up some of these pieces and then figure out how it's all going to go together. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the floor and the back wall first. I don't want to put this in just yet, the door, because I might paint that separately. But to put it in, because the floor needs to butt up against it. So it's out, and then when we put it all together, we can see what it looks like. Okay, so I've just sprayed all the inside of this black, as you can see, and I've also sprayed the wall black and a few other bits. And I've just clamped the wall in place temporarily, because what I'm doing now is I'm fitting the grills to the floor, and because they don't fit perfectly all the way across, I've had to cut some of them down. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting them at the back, because what will happen, hopefully, is when I go to put the wall pieces on, they will basically hide the join like that. So I'm not going to film all of this because, quite frankly, it's tedious. But I just wanted to let you know what I'm doing. So basically, I'm going to make sure that this edge looks good, this edge looks good, and then fill in the rest of it. The reason I've got the wall clamp there is because when I get to this end, I'm going to need to cut some pieces to fit in along the bottom of the door. So I will get on with this, and I will show you it when it's done. Right, so I've got all these down, but what I wanted to do is I want to show you a little technique, because obviously I need to get down into these corners here. And I'm showing you this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's useful for this kind of thing, but it's also a useful thing to know around the house. So, for example, if you're doing laminate flooring or tiling or anything like that, and you need to cut a piece to fit into a little gap like that, I'll show you how you do it. So we'll do this first one here, because that's the easiest one for me to actually show you what I'm doing. Now, if you just put that on like that and push it into the corner and mark it, you might think, well, that'll do. But then what you've got to do is you've got to cut it, and then you've got to flip it round, because we want this end facing outwards, which means it then might not fit. So that's no good. So what you do instead is you put it on top of the tile or whatever it is next to it like that, right? Then you take another one and you put that on top, and you push that into the corner, into the edge, like so, right? Hold that there. Make sure they're all lined up nicely. Then take your pencil, nice sharp pencil, and mark each side like that. There we go. Now we take this off, take this off. Now I'll cut this end off and watch what happens. Oh, it's kind of awkward doing this in front of the camera, but there you go. So there and there, cut that. Right, so that's that bit I've just cut off. So now, if we turn that round, and I get me tweezers, whatever I've done with them, and that should fit perfectly in there like that, you see? Clever that, isn't it? But like I say, you can do that. Obviously it works for this, but it works for tiling, laminate flooring, anything like that. So if you ever need to get into an edge, that's how you do it. Right, I'll do the rest of these and then we'll see what it looks like. Right, so there we go. That's that end done. So what I'm going to do now is take this wall back out, and then I'm going to flip it on its back and do the back wall with the do this back wall here with the other tiles. I'm leaving that corner as it is for now, in case you're wondering, because I've got an idea for something to do in that corner, and I'm not sure if it's going to work or not yet. So I haven't cut a piece to go in that corner yet. Hopefully there'll be something else there. So this is basically the same process as the floor, but just on the wall. See, now this is all dry, I can flip it over and lay these flat. So these, I deliberately sized all of these different components so they were all the same size. So hopefully this should all fit together. There's a bit of a gap at the top here, and I've got something to fill that gap. I've got these ones, these tiles here, and I'm basically going to put those like that, just to dress up the edge a bit. Or I might just put another one of those on, I don't know yet, and just cut it in half. Can't decide. We'll see. I'll put the rest of them on first, and then we'll come back and look at that. There we go. Alright, so I'll put a dot of that there. And we'll pop that in there like that. Alright, and then we'll put the next one. That, and we'll just work our way along. But you can see hopefully how these edges are now hiding the bottoms of those where I cut the other ones off. Oh, some of these have still got bits on the edge I need to file off. Right, so we're going to do the same thing here in this corner as we did down here. So it's a case of getting a tile, placing it on top of the other tile like that, putting this one in and up to the corner like that, and then drawing a line across it with a pencil like so. And now we can cut this piece off and it will fit in that gap. Right, so there it is with the all the various bits attached, and I'll just put the back wall in just to see what it looks like. So that's all looking good. So obviously there's still some more paint layers to go on this, but a lot of this stuff we can paint at the same time. So the next thing to do is start applying some finishes to all the various bits and pieces. So that's next. Now I was about to start painting this, and I suddenly realised that I needed to drill all the holes in it for the lights. So I've drilled a hole right the way through, which is the same size as the acrylic on the nut, so that will go in there. And then I've done 2 counter bores on the underside. You can't really see them very well, but there's a 3mm hole in the middle to take the LED, and then a 4mm counter bore to take the rim of the LED. So that will sit in there like that, and then shine the light up from the bottom. Now, what I'm also going to do, and you can see I've marked it out, is these little like horn protuberances on there. I'm actually going to try and drill those out as well. And what I want to try and do, if I can, is drill them through to the middle and then put a bit of fibre optic in it. So I'm just going to give it a go now. I've just got the Archimedes drill with a nice shiny new drill bit in it, and we'll see what happens. I didn't want to do this on the drill press because I don't want too much torque on it, because it will just crack it like an eggshell. So I'll just do it like this. It will take a while, but it shouldn't. It should be a lot safer. Like that, you see. So I'll do all of these, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so that's all the fibre optics in. What I've done it's probably a bit difficult to see because the light's playing merry hell with the camera. But it's actually really annoying. Somewhere in this shed, I have got some 1mm fibre optic cable, and do you think I can find it? It's what trouble when you tidy up, you see, you can't find anything. Anyway, that's beside the point. What I've done is I've used some of this, which you've seen me use before. It's an old toy, but get off. But it's just got like strands of fibre optic on it, and I just cut bits of that off. It's not ideal, but it's all I can find at the moment. And what I've done is I've put 4 strands in each hole. So stop laughing at the back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these in with some super glue. I'm not going to glue the nut in just yet. I'll leave that. I've only got the nut there because basically it's holding all of these fibre optics in place. So I'm going to run a bit of super glue down and let it kind of like wick down and stick it all together. And then I'll paint it and do everything. And then once it's all done, I'll come back and I'll snip these off to length, and it saves me having to mask it up. Because the thing is now, if I cut this to length and then sprayed it, then obviously it would cover up the end of the fibre optic. So by leaving it long and then cutting it off at the end, you don't have to mask anything up. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'll glue all this up, and then we can actually get on and put some paint on things. So, fun. But that looks pretty good, doesn't it? I might have to cut this down a little bit, but we'll see. Right, so it's time to put some paint on things, and I'm going to try something here. So I'm not going to show you each step as I go along. I'm going to kind of talk you through what I'm going to do, and then kind of show you the results, as it were. So obviously everything has been given a coat of this black spray paint, and the reason for that is because I want to do some paint chipping if I can. The overall colour scheme for this is going to be white, but white with a bit of weathering. So what I'm going to do is, now I've got the black base coat, I'm going to give it a coat of silver. Then once that's dry, I will give it a coat of varnish, gloss varnish, and once that's dry, hairspray, and then the white colour coat. So for our silver, I'm going to use this. This is a high coat paint. You've seen me use these before, and this is Vauxhall Sovereign Silver Metallic. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. This is all going to be a bit of an experiment, but I've had a lot of success with these paints. You've seen me, I use them a lot, so I'm going to try that. So once that is dry, I am going to coat it with this Humbrol gloss varnish, again out of a rattle can, mainly because these parts are all so big, and it's one of these things that, yes, I could do it with the airbrush, but this will do it much quicker and much cheaper. Now what I'm also going to do on some of the pieces, I'm going to try this. Now this is High Coat's clear lacquer. Now you've seen me use the matte lacquer before. This is gloss, so I'm going to give it some of this to try it. So that's our gloss coats. Now obviously then we use the hairspray. We use the same cheap hairspray we always use, but then we need to think about what we're going to do for the white. Now normally I would use, for a big thing like something like this, this is again a Humbrol. It's basically white primer, but I'd give it a go with that. But I've also got here again another high coat thing, and this is Kia Clear White. Now the one reason I'm not sure if this is going to work is because these are gloss acrylics, and I don't know if it's going to chip. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this and try it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then I'll weather it. You know, there are other ways we can weather it. So now I've gone through all of that. Basically, what I'm going to do now is I am going to give all of the black parts a coat of this Vauxhall Sovereign Silver Metallic, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Vauxhall Sovereign Silver. It's just this was the one I picked up. I'll give it a coat of that. Then we'll give it a coat of the lacquer. The one issue with these lacquers is you do need to leave them to cure overnight, which is a bit of a pain. And the thing is, with this, you don't. But I usually leave varnishes overnight if I'm going to be doing something else anyway, so it's not the end of the world. So we'll give it a coat of that. Then we'll give it the hairspray, and then this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and do all of those things, and then we'll come back and see if we can chip the paint. Everybody been paying attention? There will be a test at the end. Let's see how it works. Okay, so this silver's come out all right. I've given it a coat of the gloss lacquer and left that to cure, which it has done. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit it with a coat of this cheap hairspray. This is the Bristow's one that we got from the pound shop. I did a video on comparing cheap hairsprays. Not a great deal of difference between them. So give it a coat of that, let that dry, and then I'll give it a coat of the High Coat Kia Clear White. And we'll dry that, and then we'll see what it's like for chipping. So, that's next. Right, let's see how this works. Just wet it a bit first. Start on these corners. So I think the trouble is with this gloss is it's going to be very difficult to actually keep it wet, because it's obviously shiny and is designed to repel water. So, but we'll see how it goes. So this is a brush, it's an old brush that had quite stiff bristles that I just cut down, so they're actually quite kind of, well, stiff. Stop laughing at the back. Let's see how this works. I can feel the brush kind of like, I don't know if you can hear that squeaking. I think it might be starting to come off a bit. Because the main thing I want to do is like round there's like a little keyboard and that, and I want to do that because that's where, you know, people will have touched it and like rubbed the paint off. Oh, it doesn't seem to want to come off at all. You might have to get a little bit more brutal with it. Cocktail stick. Wow, this really doesn't want to come off. I can get little bits of it off, but it's yeah, I think we might have to use the other stuff. Could come off. I'll keep working at it for a minute and we'll see what happens, but I'm not, it doesn't look very promising. I think it's just because it's gloss is the trouble. Okay, time for a little update. Things have not been going exactly according to plan. I think it's probably the best way to put it. This is the computer that had the gloss acrylic on it, and it really didn't want to chip. It was almost impossible to chip it. Because of the gloss surface, the water just ran off of it. I managed to do a little bit, which is fine because I actually only wanted to do a little bit, but if you wanted to do a lot, this really doesn't work. So having said that, the acrylic from the rattle can wasn't much better, I have to say. As I normally I do it with an airbrush, and I think that's the way to go in future. But anyway, I've done what I want to do. So I've done some on the door and the handle and the frame and whatnot. I've painted in some of the details, as you can see, just using acrylics. mainly just like Citadel acrylics. And what I need to do now is seal all of this, and then I'm going to put a wash on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal, again, this is my guinea pig computer. I'm going to seal that again with the clear lacquer that I used before. And for the rest of it, I'm going to use my normal Humbrol acrylic gloss, because I know that works. So at least if this one goes horribly wrong, we haven't ruined the whole thing. But this is a good experiment. We're learning. Yes, so gloss coats and then a wash. Right, so I've got a couple of our computers here. So this is the one, this is our guinea pig that's got the gloss lacquer on it, and this is one of the other ones that has the acrylic gloss on it. So I'm going to apply some of this panel line to it, just to give us a bit of a wash, and then we'll let it all dry off and then see what it looks like. So I'm just going to go around with the sort of edges and things, just to give us a bit of contrast, and then around all the keys and things on the keyboard. A bit too much on that inside there. I'll just use this to soak some of it up and move it over here. Right, that's that one. Now we'll do this one and do it exactly the same, and then once they're dry we can clean them up and see how well it works. I mean, obviously I'll do all the other bits as well, but we'll just use these as our guinea pigs. Right. There we go. I'll do all the other bits as well, but what I say, we'll come back and look at these two in particular. Okay, so the wash is dried, as you can see, and I've got our two experiments here, and this is Humbrol enamel thinner, and I'm going to use this to remove the excess wash. Now you might say, why am I using the Humbrol? It's not because of any particular affinity for Humbrol or anything like that. It's simply because this jar is a very handy size. Yeah, so we need to remove this. Now, how do we get it off? Or how do we apply the thinner? You can really do it any way you want. You can use a cotton bud. I've got some brushes here. This is just a cheap Chinese brush. And then I've got like a fan brush here. This is a Boldmere one, so this came from the works. So it's really whatever you want to do. So just to show you, if I just dip that in the thinner, and the thing is, you don't want a lot, so just kind of dab it off on a bit of kitchen paper and get rid of the most of the thinner, and then just wipe it, and you'll see it just comes straight off. So you can get rid of that excess. I'm not pressing or anything like that. I'm literally just wiping it across the surface, and that excess wash just comes straight off like that, you see. But what you can also do, if you take your brush and do the same thing, you don't need a massive amount, and you can do things like streaking. So if you just, because what you're doing now is kind of thinning down the wash, and then you can just like drag it down like that and create streaks. Like that, you see. And the same with this one. Just do the same thing, put it in the thinner, wipe the majority of it off, and it's the same thing. You can just, these brushes are really good for it, because you can see when they get wet they go kind of spiky, and if you just very lightly brush them over the surface, it really works to get that kind of streaking. So a combination of different techniques, but you know, it's just to give you some ideas. So I'll give these a clean up, and then we'll see what they look like. Right, that's actually worked out quite well on both of them, so yeah, quite pleased with those. So I'll get on and do all the rest of these bits, and then we'll see what it all looks like. Okay, so I've just put all this together because I want to see what finishes to put on things. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this base plate and the end wall, and I'm going to give those and the floor and the wall a coat of a satin lacquer, and then the 2 Tesla coils, the whatever this is in the middle, and the 3 computers, I'm going to do those with a gloss. So because I don't want the floor and the walls to be too shiny, if that makes sense. But the floor, but the equipment I want kind of shiny. So yeah, that next. Right, so I'll leave all this, I think, to dry overnight now probably, and then tomorrow we can start putting it all together and doing the electronics. Yeah, quite pleased with how this is coming out so far. Nearly done now. I think before I do the electronics, I'm going to stick this down, or I'm going to stick the bits down on the diorama. I'm going to start with this one, because obviously there's a hole in the base that the light needs to go up and into the bottom of this, so I need to make sure this is placed perfectly. So I'll put this on first before I put the rest of it on. So I'm just going to get a bit of super glue on the bottom of this. Get rid of that stringy bit first. Right. Now what I've got to do is make sure that goes on exactly in the middle. So no pressure. Right. Right, sorry, but I need to look straight down at it while I place it. So there, like that. Alright, you stay there, and I'll just flip this up and make sure that it is lined up, which it is. Okay, that super glue should dry fairly quickly. And now we can put all the other bits on. So I'll glue the other bits on. There's the 3 computers and the 2 Tesla coils, and then after that we'll look at the electronics. Right, so we've got something a bit different here. This is the base, the box for the base. Now normally I make these out of wood, if you remember from some of our other videos. What I've done this time is I had an attempt at 3D printing one, just out of curiosity, and it's come out reasonably well. I made the design as one piece, and I actually wanted to print it out as one piece, but the trouble is it's just slightly too big to fit on my printer, because obviously. So what I did was I put it in Mesh Mixer and I cut it in half so I could print the 2 ends vertically, and it's okay. It hasn't printed, but I mean, you can see there's some artifacts, but that's my printer, that's not the model. So I stuck it together with super glue, and then I put some coffee stirrers in there, and I've just super glued those down just for a bit of reinforcement, although it's actually quite sturdy. And then the base of the diorama just sits over the top like that, the way it does on the boxes. So I've actually modelled it with the hole for the wargaming base, which is here, which we're going to use to put all of our... oh God, can you actually see that? There you go. This is the trouble with it when it's black, is the camera kind of struggles with it a bit. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put all of our electrics together. So I've got all the various bits I need here. So I've got the wargaming base, which we'll cut the holes in a minute. I have a switch. This is a torch switch. If you're looking for these on eBay or Amazon, it's literally called a torch switch. It's just a on-off switch. I have a battery. This is a 3.7 volt, 350 milliamp hour lithium polymer battery. So we've got that. We have a charging circuit for said battery. So this is one you plug a USB cable into it and it charges the battery. And I also have the light, obviously. So this is a 3mm. This is actually pre-wired for 12 volt. These are great because they're just as bright if you put 3 volts through them as you do 12 volts, but you don't have to worry about blowing the LED if you've got the wrong voltage, so it's fine. So they're really good for that. So I've got that. I've got a bit of clear plastic sprue here from another model. This is from a 1/72 scale HE162. So there you go. And I'll show you what that's for. But that's basically to take the status lights on the charger to the front of the case, but I'll show you how that works in a minute. I've also got some spare bits of wire here because we'll need a couple of bits to connect up the switch. I've got the soldering iron on, I've got soldering paste, and I have solder. So now we can put all of this together. So the first thing we want to do is connect the battery to the charging board. And what we've got here, let me find a pointy thing, there we go. You see here we've got B plus, B minus. So we need to connect the positive and the negative for the battery to these two terminals. Now this battery actually has 3 wires because it has the positive and the negative, the black and the red, and it also has this white wire which is like a battery status monitor, but we don't need that for this because that's all done by the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off these wires, cut them one at a time, because if you cut all 3 of them you'll short circuit the battery. So let's just separate them out a bit. So we'll cut that one, put it out of the way, and then we'll cut that one and then that one. Right, wire strippers. Like that. And the negative. Sorry if I go a bit all over the place, but I'm just trying to keep the wires apart. And now just twist those up to neaten the ends up a bit. Like I say, we want to keep those apart because we do not want the positive and the negative to touch, because it will short the battery out. So we put the red wire, the positive, to the positive terminal on the charging board. Some soldering paste on there. Oh, lay flat. A little bit of that on there. And boom. Right, that's that one. And we'll do the same with the negative, and then we don't have to worry about those wires accidentally touching anymore. And there we go. And what I like to do as well is just flip this over and just do the backs as well. It just tidies everything up and makes sure you don't have any sort of errant wires floating about. So that's the battery connected. So what we're going to do now is we need to connect a wire from the positive side, the out positive side, to the switch. So I've got some spare wire here. Alright, and that goes on the out positive side. So same deal again, like that. And now this wire connects to the switch. Alright, I'm going to use this helping hand. If you don't have one of these, I strongly advise getting one, because they're very, very useful when it comes to doing things like this. Because it basically means you can do that and you've got something to hold it. You don't have to muck about trying to hold it and solder it and everything all at the same time. So a bit of soldering paste on each of those. And there we go, that's that one. And now for the other end of the switch, we connect that to the live on the light. On the wire and on the switch. Solder. There we go. And now we take the negative. Let's just make sure that's not actually on. And we put it to the negative side of the charger, thus completing our circuit. And again, soldering paste, solder, and the last step, flip that over and do the same again on the back. And there we go. And that is a very simple lighting circuit. We have rechargeable battery, we have the charging circuit, we've got a switch, and we've got a light. So now, if I turn the switch on, we should get an LED, like so. Now, if I plug in a USB cable, this is out of the camera, but if I just plug this in here, you can see we've got a red light there. These two status lights here, one is red, that shows it's charging. The blue means it's fully charged. So because this is going to be inside the box, we need to get that light to the front. So that's where this comes in. So what I shall do is put that in such a position that it actually carries the light to the front, but I'll show you that a bit more in a minute. So what we need to do now is take our wargaming base and we need to cut some holes in it. So we've got a hole for the plug to go in, we've got a hole so we can access the switch, and then a hole for this to go through. So I'll cut all those holes and then we'll come back and put it all together. Okay, so to make the various holes in this, there's a slot in the back of this base which is quite handy for this to sit in. So what we need to do is put that board, line it up with the slot and get it in the middle, roughly in the middle, and then take a knife and mark each side of where the port is. And like that, you see. And you can see there we've got a couple of little marks. Just make those a bit deeper so we can see them easier. Like that. So now we take our clippers and we cut straight down on those lines. Like that and like that. And then go in at an angle and basically cut that out. Like that. And so now that will fit in there. Now I've measured these loads of times before. This port is 4mm high. So what we do is drill a couple of holes. That's 4mm. And we open those holes out to 4mm. And again, I would normally do this on the on the pillar drill, but right, that's one, and That's 2. And then you can just take your clippers and cut that. Cut that. You might need to clean this hole up a little bit with a knife. Just get rid of any straggly bits. And now this will fit in there quite nicely and give us access to the charging port, you see. Now we need to drill a 4mm hole for this to go through. I mean, obviously whatever size this is what size this one happens to be 4mm. So there's a nice little bit there that's easy enough to use, so we'll go straight through the middle of that, like that. And again, just clean it up. I normally wouldn't have all this fuss if I was using the drill press, but it's fine. And then that will fit in there. Obviously I'll have to cut this down to fit properly. And then for this one, I will do it on the drill press, but I need a 7mm hole at the bottom for the switch to go in. I'll do that on the drill press. Right, so the first thing we need to do is put the switch in. And what I like to do is just put it in with a little drop of super glue, just to hold it in place. Everything of this will get hot glued in, but I just like to use a little bit of super glue on this just to hold it in place while we do the rest of it. So it doesn't need a lot, just a drop on each side, like that. And then we put that in the hole and just hold it for a second. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute, like that. And then we take the charging circuit, put that in, like so. And then this is where we burn our fingers with the hot glue gun. But it's no fun if you don't burn your fingers, apparently. So we just go in the side here. Bit of hot glue in there. Try not to get it all over the socket where the wire goes in, because otherwise you'll block it out, and I've done that before and it's a nuisance because you then have to pick it all out. You really want to get in like round the side, like that, and then just hold that for a minute and let it cure, because that will then hold that in place while you put some more glue on, just to make sure it all stays in place. Right, and then come back in, and this is where we want to try and get everything nicely glued in. So all down the sides, across the back. Make sure the switch is getting plenty of attention. And it does get very stringy and messy, but it doesn't matter. Once it's dry, you can just pick all those bits off. Now, the other thing we want to do is attach this bit of plastic. So basically the way that works is it goes through the hole, and you can see I've cut it at an angle, and it just sits on top of those 2 LEDs like that. So the way to put it on, and you've got to be fairly quick doing this, so do try and pay attention, is put a blob of glue over both the LEDs like that, and then get your bit of plastic and just bop into the glue like that. And you want it to kind of sit in the glue level with the tops of the 2 LEDs like that. And you can, if you want, put a little drop of glue up here just to hold it in place. So we'll just let that all set up for a second. Right, that's all fine. So now what we can do is take our clippers, clip that off flush there, like that. And now if we plug in our charging light, you can see the light there, and it brings it to the front. So that way you can see what's going on from the outside. And because it's in the middle of the two, when the blue light comes on, it will do exactly the same thing. So that's that. Make sure it all still works, which it does. So now we can put it in the base. So we get our base in, and the great thing about doing it like this, oh, it's quite difficult to film this, is you can basically pop everything through from the outside like that, and then try and keep that somewhere near straight, and then that just pops in like that, you see, and again, done. So I think now we can put this all together and wrap this up. We've got one more little step to do first, and then we can wrap this up. Right, so the last thing we need to do is take that bit of sponge out of there, if I can get it out, because that was just really to stop that hole getting filled up with paint, and then just snip these off like that, and that just reveals the fibre optics like that. Now we can get our nut, and I might cut this nut down a little bit actually. I think it might be up a bit high, but we'll see. Now let's get the base in and lift that up. What I'll do is I'll stick this down onto the base just using some double-sided tape, but I'll do that in a minute. And then we just put that up through the hole like that, pop it down on the base, and now if we turn our light on, oh, get it somewhere you can actually see it, and you can see the light shining through. It's not very bright at the moment, obviously, because it's it's got all the main lights shining on it. But let me just turn these lights off. Hang on. Oh. Ah, there we go. That looks a bit better, doesn't it? In fact, hang on. Let's do this. Oh, that's dark. That's very dark. But anyway, you get the point. I can't see the light switch now. Oh, there we go. That's a bit too dark. But obviously that'll be quite effective in a low light situation. But now we can put young Scrat on here and wrap this up. And here is our finished article. Young Scrat has infiltrated this abandoned laboratory somewhere in pursuit of his nut, and somehow it's got caught up in some kind of force field thing. This was quite a fun little build actually. It's actually fairly basic. I mean, it's nearly all 3D printed. In fact, pretty much the whole thing is 3D printed, so it was just almost just like paint and assembly. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with how this has come out. And my daughter's decided to join us again, so say hello, Katie. Hello, Katie. Anyway, more importantly, seeing as this was all done for you, what do you think of it?
I'm not mildly content. I'm very disappointed because you didn't electrocute Scrat.
Oh. Well, that told me, didn't it? Well, maybe next time, eh? So yeah, apparently I didn't electrocute Scrat. So
you said you were going to electrocute him and you didn't.
I'm not putting 80,000 volts on a diorama that's going in your bedroom. You burn the house down. Anyway, we shall discuss this later. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Say goodbye, Katie.
Goodbye, Katie.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers, guys. Bye.